مدینه من اولین ولا
انا خریدو خودخواه پیزیز بچه ها بیه تو سوالا اینجا میشه بودیمان لیزم
The border between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan has been disputed since the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Periodic small-scale clashes have erupted there over access to land and water between local populations and at times with border guards. During those 4 days in September 2022, the countries deployed their forces who launched indiscriminate and disproportionate attacks that could amount to war crimes. The laws of war require Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan to protect civilians during armed conflict. Human Rights Watch traveled to both sides of the border to piece together what happened. We spoke to witnesses, analyzed satellite imagery, reviewed photos and videos, and built 3D models. Yakib Meldikulov, a 55-year-old retiree from Kyrgyzstan, fled his village of Dostuk after hearing news of violence at the border.
16 günü ertemenden saat 6'da turup dairdanıp maşinamen kettik. 1 kilometr jokoru barıp turup kayra birinse kalıp ketken eken kayra kelip alabız dep үйгө жетпей калдык, атуу башталып калган экен. Анан бизди кайтарды, кайра артка кеттик.
Heavy fighting between forces of the two countries broke out. Over the next hours, it spread across multiple locations along the border. Human Rights Watch investigated an attack by Kyrgyz forces near the village of Shobog, where 2 Tajik ambulances and a vehicle carrying civilians came under fire. The attack killed 10 civilians, including 4 children and 2 medical workers, and injured 6 more. By analyzing the movement of the vehicles, their positions, and the damage they sustained, a 3D model helped us determine that the 2 ambulances were hit by shots fired from around the Kyrgyz village of Dostuk, about 110 meters away. In a separate incident, the Tajik town of Histavaz was hit by shelling between 7:30 and 8 a.m. 59-year-old Savrineso Hojiboeva was killed and 4 of her relatives were severely injured when a shell fell inside the family's courtyard in what appears to have been an indiscriminate attack.
Sivjet galten bekaytu dud şut burak dudiba. Vay kolajom pisarama biyo in kelme gir ham majos khun tabe buva ham tu istadis kholam galti degi me koy kadon khola tiam bu mama biyama giftasyo kadon khola gan kholam me bu biyo ina bien alan ham majos khun te vaziti kholam vazbi mudna guf yo mam tikse zot va mitginde
ya Kyrgyz'a zada daromde.
Heavy fighting continued along the border throughout the day. Tajik forces overwhelmed Kyrgyz forces and took control of multiple Kyrgyz villages. People in civilian clothes speaking Tajik carried out widespread looting under the watch of Tajik forces, while hundreds of homes and other types of civilian infrastructure such as kindergartens, schools and medical facilities were set on fire in what may have been an attempt to clear the area of its population. Sometime before 2:30 p.m., Mezakmat Hamidov, a 72-year-old retired man from Kyrgyzstan, was killed in his garden in Boboduk. The village was under the control of Tajik forces at the time.
Ertalab maktabga nevaracham olib bordi. U yo'ldan qaytarib yubordi bolalarni, urush bo'lyapti deb. Keldi, shatgatga nima, men yuring ketaylik bo'lsam aytib qo'ygan, men qari odam bo'ltir, hamma joyimni olib ketdi dedi. Hamma joy narsani olib ketdi. Men nima bo'ladi? Men yuqoriga chiqib o'tiraman, mana shu kelib o'tirar ekan. Keyin bularni qo'shnim podvalga kirdik. podvalga kirib o'sha yerda o'tirdikda keyin o'tirgandan keyin bir yarim soatdan keyin qizim telefon qildi. Dadam boya telefon olyapti edi, hozir telefon ishlayapti, dadam olmayapti dedi o'sha paytda. Endi nima qilaman deb yugurgilab keldim men bu yerga. Kelsam xo'jayinim mana yerda yotgan ekan. Ustini kimdir yopib qo'ygan ekan.
Around 5 p.m. in the central square in Ovchikalacha, a Tajik town on the border, Kyrgyz forces used a laser-guided bomb with blast fragmentation effects near Tajik forces minutes after they had arrived. Dozens of civilians were also in the square at the time. We used 3D modeling to reconstruct immediate aftermath of the strike, which killed at least 10 civilians and injured 13 others, mostly men who had gathered outside the local mosque after a funeral. We identified the bomb and mapped out the positions of the military vehicles and the civilian victims and found that the attack was disproportionate and apparently indiscriminate.
ساعتهای نزدیکی 5 بود. به ابولا و پس که آمده زد ما نمیدونم آدمو میگفت که توپلنگ بلند شد.
Zoidbek Dadobekov was outside the entrance of the mosque, about 10 meters from the impact site when the bomb struck.
یکم من این پاچکم دیدم که خون برام داشت. همون پایین پاچک خون پانتم با این چاشید. من با فایده رسیدگی شدم که من مسلوق شدم. زندگیم چروک شد. من دو ماه باز خور رفتیم. من این بچه‌ها عذاب میکشیده کن. آینده بچه‌ها جای خواندن و کار میکنه ده کن مردی کاری میکنه چه کار میکنه. من این ها اکون زندگی همین ها میفرو.
Looting and burning continued in Kyrgyz villages while Tajik forces had control. By the end of the day, they withdrew.
Kelgenimizde duvalı kalıptır. Duvalдар анан күйгөндөрдү көрдүк да. Ичинде эч нерсе калган эмес. Так биринчи көргөндө эле ошолор снаряд тийген эмес, атайлап күйгүзгөнүн көрдүк да. Специальный күйгүзгөнүн.
من نمیدونم برای چیزی جنگ کرد چیزی به جنگ شد این از چند بار جنگ شد چیزی فایده میبینه فقط آدم میمونه